So hi all. In the morning session, we seen the very briefly about the food safety management system. So in this session, probably we will be seeing in detail about the various aspects of food safety management system and its applications, and the elaborately about the hazard analysis. So that will be the next 1 hour we're going to see in this session. So food safety management system is basically a systematic approach to control the potential food safety hazards in the food chain. Sir, can you go in mute?
Yoga?
Sir.
Yoga, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, mute பண்ணிடுங்க sir.
அண்ணாச்சி நீங்க மியூட் ஆகுங்க.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So basically, food safety management system is designed to control the potential food safety hazard associated with the product. So according to FSSA Act, it is nothing but like adoption of good manufacturing practices, hygiene practices, ASAP, and other practices as dictated by the regulations. So the interactive elements morning we seen as per ISO 22000, these are the major elements of FSMS, which is good practices and PRPs as hazard analysis, management element and system, statutory and regulatory requirements, and interactive communication. We will see all these one by one. So these are the 4 principles which we discussed earlier. So what will be the outcome of successful implementation of food safety management system? From morning we seen like it comprises of system approach and process approach. So what will be the outcome is nothing but it give the ability to the food business operator to control the food safety hazard, and it make the food business operator to comply to the various requirements of regulatory authorities, and then it used to assess and meet the customer requirement, and then it frames the various communications about the food safety management within the organization and external to the organization about the food safety, and then it enables to evaluate and updation of the food safety management system. So periodically this food safety management system will be reviewed by the team, and so during that review they evaluate the outcome of this food safety management system and they update that system, and then of course it make the food safe for human consumption. So these are the major outcomes of the successful implementation of food safety management system. So the first part is prerequisite program. So what is prerequisite program is nothing but creating the basic environment and operation conditions to manufacture safe food. So that's a basic definition of prerequisite program. So prerequisite program includes locations, location of the facility, equipment and utensils what we are using, and supplier controls, production specification, like pest control, and the procedures for traceability, recall, all these comes under prerequisite program. So we will be seeing one by one about that. So first is like establishment, design and facilities, and then primary production. So various elements of the primary production and the safe environment to do that primary production will be addressed while implementing PRP. And control of operation. Control of operation includes each and every unit operation, how we control and making the environment safe for food production, and training, product information and consumer information, personal hygiene, transportation, all these are the basic elements of PRPs. And the next is HACCP. So HACCP is nothing but a scientific system which helps the food business operator to identify, evaluate and control the food safety hazards. So food safety hazard are majorly 3 types: biological, chemical and physical hazards. So this HACCP is a tool to identify the potential hazards and to control them, and then to eliminate them from the food chain. So that is this HACCP is one of the major tool food business operator can use. So the concept include identification of potential hazard and and determine the ways how it can be prevented, whether it can be prevented by PRP or OPRP or it requires CCP. So that we will be determine that, and then describe who will do that and how to train that person, that we need to describe, and then we need to implement the plan which we drafted using this tool, and then record and monitor what we are implementing, and based on the outcomes we will develop this, we will update this plan also. So this is the concept of HACCP. So then the next element of food safety management system is interactive communication. So what is interactive communication and what we need to communicate? So basically this communication contains two things: internal communication and external communication. So internal communication includes different departments within the organization. So how effectively we are communicating about the food safety things within the organization. So for example, supply chain team will be there, quality team, production team. So quality team basically draft all the policies, procedures, and protocols to be followed in the process line. So how effectively these things are communicated to the other stakeholders within the organization, and how it is how it is effectively communicated through trainings, everything is coming and comes under internal communication. And in external communication, how we are communicating and set the expectations about the food safety management system to the suppliers and contractors and to the customers about the product informations, and how we are addressing the grievances of the customer, how we are addressing grievances of our suppliers and vendors, and how we are addressing food safety authorities communications, and how we handle any emergency situations, and how we communicate that to food authorities. All that will comes under external communication. So there should be a fixed protocol to initiate and close this communication. So that is the one of the major element in food safety management system. Then the next is system management. System management is nothing but establishing like policies and objectives for different departments within the system. So this includes network monitoring, asset inventory, automation, system administration, IT and security compliance, all that which is coming and related to food safety management system. So we need to have a documented procedures and protocol to control all that. For example, like asset inventory management. So each asset of the food business operator should be tracked, and it should be identifiable. So there should be a number. If a food business operator have, like for example, tables in the processing line, it should be identifiable, numbered, all that thing, and all the systems, records, documents which we are using, that should be controlled. We will be seeing that in the coming slides. So this is one of the food safety elements in food safety management system. Then various statutory and regulatory requirements. So why we are seeing this is like, this is also one of the element in while drafting the food safety management program. So a food business operator should able to comply to all these regulatory requirements in order to commence his production. So as we discussed in morning, Schedule 4, the part 4 of Schedule 4 giving us the specific hygiene and sanitary practices to be followed by the operators who handles meat. So in that we seen various PRPs. That part 4 of Schedule 4 contains various PRPs to be in place, and other regulations includes Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, that all the clauses and requirements of that regulation should be followed by the operator. Then water prevention and control, Act 1974. All these are like list of various regulatory requirements. Then also what we discussed in the morning elaborately about the food safety audit, that is also one of the legal requirement. And the registration of the firm, trade license, MSME registration, GST, license from FSSAI, trademark, IEC code. So this trademark and IEC code is voluntary, like whenever it is applicable, they can get, or otherwise the basic things are already given here. So these are like mandatory things, and trademark and import export code can be acquired when it is necessary for the food business operator. So next we're going to see the step-by-step implementation of food safety management system in poultry industry. So there are 8 steps. The step 1 will be like organizing the food safety team, or we can call this as a HACCP team also. Then setting up of prerequisite program. Then we need to develop a HACCP plan. Then we need to draft what are all the procedures to be followed while drafting the documentation and while issuing the documentation across the organization. Then procedure for training and awareness generation, internal audit procedure and how we going to do that audit, and then review of that internal audit points, and then the certification. So food safety management certification, we can get HACCP certificate or ISO 22000, FSSC 22000 version 5, BRC. There are several certifications we can get. So these are the 8 generic steps which will be followed while implementing this food safety management system. As we discussed morning, again this plan, do, check, act, this method will be followed. So what are all the things we need to plan is the context of the organization, risk and support. So risk include what are all the risks we may face from our for our food. So what are all the risks? It can be from the supplier, vendors. So all that context should be planned while before drafting the procedures. Then what we need to do is, while we need to implement the PRPs and we need to implement the emergency protocols like to be followed during emergency situation, then HACCP implementation that we should do. Then in check, whatever we done, we need to check and monitor that through internal audit and on real-time monitoring and through management reviews. And outcome of these reviews and internal audit results, through that we can improve the overall effectiveness of the food safety management system. So we will go one by one. So before even setting up the HACCP team, there should be a commitment from the management in order to create and handle this FSMS in a scientific way. So for that, there should be a commitment to provide basic financial infrastructure and human resource requirements. So this is major challenge in medium scale industries, like they will not have technical persons in place to implement all that things. So they usually depend upon the persons of external persons to do that work, which usually creates ineffectiveness in mainly this FSMS will be in papers, not in the shop floor. So basically management commitment is topmost priority than the further steps. So once the management is committed to ensure food safety through implementing stringent food safety management system, then it will be start with assembling the food safety management team. So food safety management team should contain persons from various department. So ideally it can contain veterinary doctor, food technologist, microbiologist, and QA, quality specialist, engineering department, production, maintenance, various departments of even supply chain. We can add housekeeping team all as well in HACCP team. So there should be one leader for this team. So we call them as food safety team leader. That person should have thorough knowledge about HACCP and food safety management system. And these other team members should be exposed to this management system training before, once we added them, maybe maintenance team or engineering team may not have a detailed knowledge about HACCP and food safety management system. So once we involve them in this process, so we need to train them before starting other processes. Then as I said, so out of this we can have a consultant. So we cannot solely depend on the consultant to implement food safety management system, but we can seek their help and ideas. So next step is like setting up prerequisite programs. So prerequisite program generally include GHP, good hygiene practices and good manufacturing practices, good agriculture practices and good distribution practices. So this is given point by point in schedule 4, part 4 of the schedule 4. So we need to take that as a reference material, and each element given in that part 4 of schedule 4 should be implemented as a part of prerequisite programs. So then we will be seeing quite fast about the various elements in coming slides about the PRPs. So the next step after implementing PRPs is development of HACCP plan. So how we need to develop this HACCP plan is we will be seeing in the coming slides. But before doing this plan, we need to conduct detailed hazard analysis. As I said, each unit operation should be addressed for various potential hazard that can enter in that unit operation. With the help of decision tree, we can identify whether that can be addressed by PRP or OPRP or CCP. That how we will be doing, we will see in the coming slides. So the next part after completing that hazard plan is documentation. So what are all the things we need to document? So documentation includes not only the ASAP document. So the major documents that should be in place is, these are the list of documents that should be in place. So what is the food safety objective of that organization? It should be clearly written in regional language, and it should be clearly communicated. So that is how interactive communication, this food safety objectives should be communicated to each and every person of the organization. And then food safety policy of the organization signed by the senior leader of the company, it should be displayed in prominent places in the premises and also in the regional languages. So each and every employee working in that processing plant should be able to tell what is the food safety policy of that processing unit. And documented PRP program. So as I said, what each element given in part 4 of schedule 4 should be documented. What we did to implement that, it should be documented clearly. And documentation of raw materials, ingredients and product contact materials. So what we did to comply that, we need to document. For example, if there is the requirement says all the food contact surface should be food grade, then in the documentation we should have the food grade certificate for the all the food contact surface we have in the food processing unit. That should be in place, and from where we procured, and is that company have the capacity to provide that. All that should be documented. Then next is characteristics of end product. So characteristics of end product is, we need to decide whether it is ready to cook product, ready to eat product, or it is canned product, or it is irradiated product. All that things we need to document in our FSM, in the list of documents under FSMS. The next is intended use of the end product. So intended use means who is the end customer of the product which come as output from my plant. So whether it is for child or it is for everyone, and what are all how we need to cook that product, all that comes under intended use of end product. So if the product not used as per the intended use, then we cannot assure that our promises which we given may not reflect. So intended use should be clearly communicated to the customers and various stakeholders. Then the next important document is flow diagram of the product and process category. So this is very important aspect. So I will show you a flow diagram in next coming slide. So a flow diagram should, explain each and everything of which need for, conduct the unit operations. So flow diagram should explain. So for example, if my flow diagram explains cleaning of tables, then the flow diagram should say from where the water for that cleaning process will come. So if my flow diagram have a process of packing, then that flow diagram should say from where I will store the packing materials. So like that, the flow diagram should be interactive and it should detail everything, and each and every inputs needed to implement each unit operation, that should be given in flow diagram itself. Then description of process steps and control measures. So each unit operations, what that in that unit operation, what we do and what are all the control measures we take at each unit operation, that should be an important document. Then the methodology of the methodology we followed to find control measures. This can be there are several methods available. So like ISO describe one method, and BRC standard, for that we use another method to identify the control measures. So the basic method is like as I said in morning, probability of occurrence of hazard and its severity. So to identify the corrective action plan for each hazard, so there are several methods. So that's what the methodology should be: scientific and evidence based. That should be documented. Then from the outcome of that hazard analysis, we should have a document which contain all the ASAP plan. Then any deviation from our plan happen, what should be the corrections we need to do? So correction is the immediate action we do after the incident of deviation. Then what is the procedure for corrective action for the potential non-conformities, and how we control that non-conforming products, that procedure should be there. Then how we withdraw in case of any incident of non-conformances, that should be there, withdrawal recall procedures, and how we communicate these withdrawal and recall process to the food authority and consumer and various stakeholders, that should be clearly written. And procedure for internal audit, document control, record control, and finally cleaning and sanitation, master cleaning sanitation program should be there. So these are the list of important documents as a part of food safety management system. So a food safety manual, we used to say, in that manual all these elements should be covered, and we should give actually this document to the auditor actually before he visit on site. So auditor actually go through all these procedures before conducting the audit. As I said morning, any deviations, any drawbacks we identify in this plan, then so he will postpone the audit, or he just hold the audit. So these are the important things. So the next part is training and awareness generation. So that the training is basically specific to the operators. So if an operator handles the unit operation, which is CCP, then there should be a separate training. So that operator should be able to say what work he is doing, what he can do in case of deviation. He should be able to demonstrate the entire procedure what we framed in as a part of corrective action. So we call something as food safety culture, which is the food safety culture is there in M brand standard, and also it is stressed by BRC as well. So food safety culture is something the top management should frame. So in order to have this food safety culture, we should involve all the employees, including the leadership, and the competence of each worker should be sufficient enough to do all the work. And then perception of food safety procedures we need to make, and then risk perception. We need to train each and every employees about the risk analysis, and we need to communicate them about the risk. These are the major elements of food safety culture. So in general, food safety culture is something that without the person available for monitoring or inspection, the employee of the organization should follow all the protocols. So that is how the ideal food safety culture should be. So it is not like one supervisor in the shop floor monitoring the workers. That time he do all the activities correct, and when in the absence they do some deviations. So successful implementation of food safety culture ensure that all the protocols will be followed by each and everyone in the shop floor, even when there is no one to monitor or inspect. So that will be the outcome of food safety culture. So next is internal FSMS audit. So after framing all the FSMS requirements, we do internal audit, whether we done all the things as given in the regulatory requirement and as given in the standard which we implemented as a part of FSMS. So internal audit, as I said, it will be conducted by the person who belongs to the same organization. So also they do department wise, like production department do the audit for quality department audit supply chain department, like that cross departmental audit will be there. So the framework which we discussed morning, the same will be followed here. The audit will be planned, executed, corrective action and preventive action request will be raised, and the auditee will be closing that, and auditor will check the effectiveness of those corrective and preventive actions. Then then next part after internal audit is management review. In this management review, various inputs will be given by food safety team leader. So FSTL is responsible to conduct these reviews in a fixed frequency. In that review, so they discuss about the previous audit points and any changes in the process line and any new supplier they evaluated and the result of the same, and the corrective action and preventive action they taken, and its its status of implementation, all that will be reviewed in this meeting. And after this review meeting, they should share minutes of the meeting, and also in the outcome will be reviewed in the next review meetings. So this is one of the part of food safety management system. Then after doing all this, we will get the certification. So certification is nothing but successful implementation of food safety management as dictated by whichever of these standards. If we have all this, we can call the third party auditor to do the audit of the organization. So they will come and check all the requirements are met or not. Then if it is effectively met, we will get that certification. So this is morning we discussed about this. So plan, do, check, act. What we need to plan, what we need to do, what we need to check, and what is the enact, what are all the outcomes we got. We will improve the FSMS food safety management system using that data. So now this is the end of food safety management system. So we will be seeing in detail about how we need to do hazard analysis and how to create hazard plan. So that is very important part of this food safety management system. So HACCP plan, to create this HACCP plan, there are 5 steps and 7 principles which FSMS team should follow. So as I said, first step is HACCP team should be formed, and that team will describe their product. So description of the product includes what are all the raw material, what is the characteristics of the raw material, what should be the requirement of those raw materials, and what are all the test reports the supplier should provide. All that should be described as to the part of product description. Then document the intended use. As I said, the team should decide who is the end user, how they should use, and at what condition they should store. All that will be explained in intended use, and at that particular storage condition, how many days they can use. All that will be explained in intended use of the product. Then construction of flow diagram, as I said, a descriptive flow diagram which explains the entire unit operations and the inputs needed for that, it will be given done in the step 4. Then step 5 is on-site confirmation of flow diagram. So this on-site confirmation of flow diagram, we can, as I said in the previous session, so we can call this third-party audit agency to confirm this on-site flow diagram. So they can do one audit for that as well, and they can give suggestions. They can give the corrective and preventive action request, in before we start the process itself. Then the principle 1 to 7. So in principle 1, we need to identify the hazards, and then we need principle 2, identification of control measures, and then for that hazards, what is the critical limits we need to identify, and then we will establish monitoring actions, corrective and corrective action plans we will establish, then verification process of all the activities which we done earlier, we will have a documented procedure for the same, and then we establish record keeping procedures. So these are the 5 steps and 7 principles of HACCP. We will see the hazard, and we will see one by one. So this is what description of the product. So what is the name, how it should be used, what should be the type of packing, and the shelf life details, and where it can be sold, who are the customers and its intended use, labeling instructions, and then any special requirement is there and is needed, that should be labeled. So for example, allergen disclaimers, and it is applicable for example geriatric food, all that will be separately labeled and that will be communicated. So this is a model flow diagram. So as I said, process step is given in the second column, and the inputs needed for that is given in first column. So there are flow charts which is more interactive than this, which details about including even the packing material and water requirement, all that thing. So receipt of the bird, hanging, stunning, cleaning. So for that, the input is live bird, so which is given here. So washing, when we say washing, water with bacterial agent. So bacterial agent means like sanitizers, like various sanitizers we use, chlorine based sanitizer and whatever, that is given as a input. See, as I said, everywhere wherever washing came, that input is then. Packing materials is the input. So like that, we need to frame this process flow based on the product description and intended use. We need to frame this process flow. Then comes as a FSMS plan. So once this is done, we will do the hazard analysis. So hazard analysis is nothing but collecting and evaluating the information on the hazard and what condition that may result in health hazard. So that comprises of hazard analysis. So the basic 3 hazards, as we discussed, physical, chemical, and biological hazards. So chemical hazards including cleaning agents, pesticide residues, veterinary drugs, and the additives we use, etc. Biological hazard include bacteria, fungi, virus, and parasites, and physical hazard include various metal and non-metal origin. So HACCP plan. So how we do the hazard analysis? This is how we do. So here is as I said, here is the unit operation. So on each unit operation, what are all the possible hazard that can come? Physical, chemical, and biological. And from that type, we need to specify what is that particular hazard. So for example, in antemortem inspection, fungal and bacterial and viral growth and chances of production of toxin or chances of direct infection to the end user is the possible hazard, which is biological in nature. And what is that? So what is the source of that hazard? So which is diseased bird, and what it will be its impact adverse that we need to analyze, and what can be the control measure for that. So each unit operation, this may differ. So we need to elaborate the unit operation first, and while discussing that like possibility of hazard and then source, we need to get the help of consultant. If the HACCP team unable to do the task, we can get the support of experts. So this is how we analyze each hazards in each unit operation. Then once we identified each hazard, then we assess that risk, what a risk associated with that hazard. So the method is probability of its occurrence and the severity it can cause. So this is the model method. So if the probability of occurrence is very low, then its consequence of severity will be less. So like that, if it is frequent, probability is frequent, and its consequence is severity, it is extreme. So this is how we from this method only we will generate OPRP, PRP, and CCP. So which we will see in next slide. So based on that, once we done that, to to decide whether the control measure need to be, that control measure can be a PRP or OPRP or CCP, this decision tree we use. So for example, here in case of freezing, how we decided that this step as CCP is by answering to each question. So the question one is whether that hazard can be managed by a PRP program. If it is yes, then there is no need to go further. It can be controlled by PRP. But if it is not, it cannot be controlled by PRPs, then is there a control measure in place for that unit to avoid that hazard? If it is no, then we need to reconsider that step. But if it is available, then we can proceed further and think if that process is specifically designed to eliminate that hazard to an acceptable level. I mean, if it is specifically designed, for example, a metal detector is specifically designed to eliminate the hazard of metal, so it is directly CCP. But if it is not specifically designed, then there is another step we need to check whether the contamination with the hazard occur at acceptable level or it can increase to the acceptable level. I mean, this means like if that contamination occur at unacceptable levels, or once it occur, it goes to increase to an unacceptable level. If it is no, it can occur but it not go to unacceptable level, then it is not a CCP. But if it is yes, then we will go to further questions like, will the subsequent process step eliminate the residue of reduce the hazard on an acceptable level? So for this we can take an example of the metal detector concept which I said in the morning. So we can have a metal detector during receiving and at the end of the process. So possibly the one which we have during receiving can be OPRP, and the one we have at the end as the CCP. So this question number 5 will give us the insight about that decision. So based on that decision, we give here the answer to each question, and if that from that only we decide whether the hazard can be controlled using CCP or OPRP or PRP. So this is one example of risk assessment using this decision tree, and we have various decision trees. So BRC have one decision tree, brand standard, they have their own decision tree. So this is very general decision tree which we can use. Then ASAP plan, based on this outcome, we should have a ASAP plan. So HACCP plan should, as I said, it should specify what is the CCP, what is the critical limit of that hazard, how we monitor that unit operation, and what can be the corrective action in case of deviation, and what is the verification protocol, and then the records associated with that CCP. So in verification, we should describe what should be verified, how should be verified, and frequency of the verification, and who is responsible for that. So the verification step and the consequent records is important in HACCP plan. So once this HACCP plan is developed, we will be continually evaluate that plan, and in case of any continuous breakage of that plan, then we will review that entire hazard analysis, and we evaluate the overall FSMS effectiveness, and we can continually improve. So that's it about the FSMS concept using HACCP. We can have a discussion. Sir?
Yes, Yogaraj.
Hi, sir.
Participants, if you have any doubt, you can ask Yogaraj.
Hi. Yes. Hello.
Yes, Yogaraj. It is audible.
Yes, sir. So we are like, we can discuss if any specific things, if a participant want to ask, I can elaborate them.
No doubt.
Hello. Yes, sir.
No doubt, it seems. Thank you,
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yogaraj. Thank you, Yogaraj, for your presentation on food safety management system.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of Lucius, I need to thank the organizers to invite me to this training session, and thank you to Selvan sir who invited me and planned this, and thank you all the organizers and the participants. And any queries is there on the content which I presented, participant can reach out, and I will try to respond to them as well.
Okay. Thank you, Yogaraj.
Thank you all. So shall I leave now, sir?
Yes, you can leave. So participants, thank you. So we will join for the next session at 3 o'clock on food safety regulations. This on food safety regulation. Thank you.